You're listening to Talk Daredevil, a podcast about all things Daredevil in the greater Marvel Universe, brought to you by the women behind Saved Daredevil.
Hello, and welcome to a brand new episode of Talk Daredevil. We are very excited to reunite after a bit of a hiatus. But if you are following any of the news online from the past couple of weeks, you'll know that very recently Disney had their biannual, every 2 year convention, D23. And we had a lot of very exciting news come out about Daredevil Born Again. So we're just hopping on and we're recording a little podcast about everything we got excited about. I'm Phyllis, and I am joined by
Aisha.
Hi, this is Christina.
And yeah, you're going to just hear us talk, perhaps in a very long-winded way, about everything we got hype about on Friday, August 9th, and after that as well. So anyway, we're recording this about a week afterwards, and this is probably going to come out maybe a little bit after that, obviously. But I'd love to know, before I kind of jump into sharing what my experience was there in person, what it felt like for you guys that day anticipating this news. Because we were like very sure they were going to do something for Daredevil Born Again. We just weren't quite sure what.
I remember I had a dinner date with friends, and I was convinced I was going to miss it. So I had warned you all. I'm like, okay, I promise I will catch up as soon as I get it. But as it turned out, everything ran kind of late. And so I came home and jumped on the Discord. I'm like, I didn't miss it. I didn't miss anything. So it was very exciting as it was happening, collectively freaking out with everyone. I think I fully expected them to drop a trailer, but I wasn't sure if they were going to release it because they had shown previously at some kind of an industry event, they had shown a teaser and then did not release it. So I was hoping they were going to release it, but I wasn't quite sure if it was going to happen. I knew that Charlie was going to be there. I kind of assumed that Vincent was going to be there because he was there in 2022. I legitimately did not expect anyone else from the cast to be on the stage. That was something I had not thought was going to happen.
And so I made sure I had no plans after work. So I came home and I made sure my calendar was clear and just waited in the Discord with the rest of our team and waiting for news about the trailer and whatever, the in person reactions would be from you because I knew you were going to be there.
Yes, I was the person on the ground. I remember back in 2022, I had wanted to go to D23, but I made the realization too late that they would probably have something Daredevil related that year. So I was just too late to try to get tickets. So I made sure that this year I wasn't going to make the same mistake. I knew that it wasn't a guarantee that they were going to do something at Comic-Con. So I figured this would be my way to kind of cover all the bases. So I was very lucky to have procured Friday tickets for myself and my husband. And kind of after Comic Con and confirming, yep, that was just movies, I was like 100% sure we were going to get something of substance for Daredevil Born Again at D23 instead. But I too was like, I wasn't 100% sure. I'm like, they're definitely going to do some kind of trailer. We're sort of in that window now that, they've already finished shooting and they're going to have stuff to show. I too wasn't expecting there to be potentially more than just Charlie and Vincent there in person. I didn't know how big or how hype Feige might make this little segment of the Marvel presentation to be. So I think throughout the whole thing, I was like very surprised and delighted and felt like Daredevil got its due when John Bernthal came out, because I'm recording, I'm trying to capture things to update the team and update folks following along on Instagram. And when John Bernthal came out, I was like, whoa. What? I, I was very stunned because there've been set photos. He's been shown in all sorts of places now with the cast. So it was like poorly kept secret that he was in the show.
Yeah.
But I just wasn't expecting him just to be right there to promote Daredevil Born Again. So very, very thrilling to see him, and then obviously to see Deb and Eldon, which it felt really right. It felt really right that they got this segment of kind of the core cast back together again. Um, so when I was there in person, it was a long presentation. I sat through a lot of interesting things, but I was like, when are we gonna get when are we gonna get to Daredevil? We got to Marvel, which was exciting. And I was like not sure what things they were actually going to present. So I wasn't really quite sure where Daredevil was gonna fall in the order of things. At the top of the Marvel presentation segment, I think we all noticed, like I noticed in the room, and I think some of you guys noticed from online, maybe seeing people's tweets, like Kevin Feige is wearing a hat. But what is on his hat? Right? I'm like, it looks like something red, but I can't make out from here what is on the hat. And I think kind of between all of us, we
Figured out.
zoomed in and enhanced and everything. We're like, oh, there's a Daredevil logo on the hat.
So he was hyped for DD. Come on.
He was hyped for DD, as he should be.
Of course, the only thing that would have been cooler is if he was wearing the hat that we sent him, which he was
Yeah.
not, but it's okay.
Hopefully it's being displayed somewhere in his
Yeah.
home.
Yeah. Our office.
Yeah, so then when it started, it's very interesting watching like a Disney panel actually and kind of watching all those panels back to back until we got to Marvel. It's very scripted. It's very it's not like a organic kind of off the cuff, you say whatever you want. There are
Very on
cues.
point.
Very on point, so Feige had things to get through and things he wanted to touch on in the interactions with the cast. So I was feeling a little bit like, oh, I wish we had had a little bit more time because again, Daredevil is just one little part of the Marvel panel, which is one little part of the greater overall Disney thing. So the time given to the cast to like talk was not very much during the panel itself. And I could tell that like there were a couple flubs here and there from like the pre-scripted bits, but that was fine. What the important part was that they were all there to obviously promote the release of this teaser trailer is what I'm going to call it. I definitely was not expecting it to be as long as it was. Kind of like looking back at it, I was like, oh shoot, that was like a 2.5 minute trailer. But as I'm experiencing this and I'm trying to update you guys and I'm trying to be present and watch the trailer, I'm literally just standing there, like, screaming on mute, essentially. Just, like, trying not to be obnoxious and, like, scream super loud, but I needed to be, like, in a screaming stance to, like, get that energy out of my body. I was just, like, the one feeling I could feel kind of during the whole thing was just, like, how excited and how much it felt like my Daredevil show. So that was kinda like my takeaway from it in the moment. And I guess we can maybe spend a little bit of time in this sort of section talking about our general reactions to the trailer. Obviously, everybody knows the trailer itself has not been officially released yet by Marvel, but there were obviously a lot of recordings that were shared. And so we're obviously commenting on those recordings. But I think, I think it's fair game. I think it makes sense for us to talk a little bit about what we thought when we watched it and kind of maybe key on a few details that could be of interest and perhaps things that we'll be discussing more in the future on this podcast before the show airs. So, yeah, I've talked enough for now. Someone want to jump in kind of with their first reactions?
Well, my first reaction, I had to watch it twice because the first time I watched it, I think all I thought was, this is happening. This is a Daredevil Born Again trailer. That's all I could think. I'm like, okay, now I have to calm down and actually go back and watch this thing and see what jumps out. It was so satisfying to see Foggy and Karen. They really did linger on that bit with Frank and Matt. They were really driving that home. We did see Bullseye for just a second. We saw Bullseye. We saw Wilson and Vanessa toasting in front of what seemed to be the blood-spattered rabbit in a snowstorm painting, which was kind of awesome. We saw a shower scene, which is like, okay, haven't had one of those in our original shows. I'm not going to turn that down. We saw many different colors of helmets. We didn't really get a long, lingering look at the suit. It was very quick. and it was hard to see. We got confirmation of characters that we had been very long rumored were going to be in it. And then we saw a character that I don't think anybody expected to be in it. So there was a lot going on. I was just kind of excited to see when in the bootleg recording that made it out that I saw, when Foggy and Karen showed up, there were definitely some woo from the audience. But I was thinking, if they had shown this in Hall H at Comic-Con, I think it would have been deafening.
Oh, yeah.
And I think that goes back to what you were saying, Phyllis, about this was a Disney presentation. This was not specifically a Marvel panel. This was a Marvel panel that was in a Disney panel. And so there were probably people in that audience who were like, I just want to see Moana 2.
Cheers for Moana 2 are quite loud. So, this perhaps was not like the target audience. Yeah, that was definitely a takeaway that I had. I hope that in the future, Disney and Marvel Studios will think about. I understand that there's been some reshuffling of priorities. Films are kind of the priority for now at places like Comic-Con, but I just felt like the reaction in the room was excited. It was like buzzing with some excitement, but it was definitely not the kind of reaction you would get from a Hall H audience who would have caught on to every single little detail that got revealed in that trailer. Again, so happy that Foggy got a cheer. Frank got a cheer. I don't know that people knew to cheer for Bullseye because I don't know that those people would have been familiar with that quick glimpse of him. And then all the comic characters that popped up and Vanessa, so
Yeah.
anyway,
Yeah.
just something to consider to the powers that be. Get these trailers in front of the audience that is going to lose their minds. But anyway, enough about that. Aisha, what did you think?
So, I mean, the first time I watched it 6 times in a row because I kept going back to the Frank and
Oh,
Matt
of course.
reveal. I'm like, "Oh my god, bring it on." I was so excited. But also, like, every time we got to the end and he says, "What kind of a lawyer are you?" And he goes, "A really good one." I'm like, "Yeah, yes, we're back, baby." Even though I never thought that that phrase that
Right.
became popular after Spider-Man, like the No Way Home, would become such an familiar phrase for the fans, and we've been DD fans for a long time. But yes, that just cements the fact it links everything together, and very very excited. Of course, Foggy, Karen, very good to see them, and I can't wait for more.
So I had actually, as it was playing and I was watching and trying to like process, I did catch Vanessa. I did catch our Vanessa. I did catch them in front of the painting. But what I didn't catch until later was I totally missed Muse. And I was like, no
Ah,
way. Like when I then went back and watched it again, I was like, no way. So what do you guys think about? I don't know. Did we know that Muse was going to be a character? Because I admit I have been trying to
Yeah.
purposely keep myself
I mean,
out
I've
of all
been
the
trying to stay
rumors.
out of the spoilers, but it's still everywhere. Like if
Hmm.
you go to Reddit,
Yeah, I
you
try not to do.
you've
Yeah, I've
already.
I've been trying not to do that.
I think
I mean,
early on, there was a set photo of a piece of graffiti that was signed by Muse. So people, I don't think we saw him in costume at all, but I think everyone's like, it's going to be Muse. And it was also really exciting that after the trailer leak, that Charles Soule actually tweeted about it, and he's like, "Yay, it's Muse! I know that guy." So that was really cool to see.
and what the costume? What did it look like? It looked very comic accurate.
Very comics accurate.
Yeah,
And that
yeah,
was one of my it was definitely one of the notable characters from that run. And I have always thought like, oh, if they're going to bring any of the more quote unquote like modern Daredevil stories and characters into the show, that's an appropriately intense one to bring into like our Daredevil
yeah,
world.
yeah.
I had to like go back online and like look up like a wiki like explain to my husband like
Right.
because I was like, oh my gosh, it's Muse. He's like, who's Muse? I'm like, let me tell you. But then after I caught the frame of his face, I went back and watched again, of course, and then caught the little like, oh, the blood and
Right, right. And also what appears to be White Tiger.
Yes, which I think was also talked about
Yes.
for a
Yeah.
while.
Yeah.
There was a set photo of someone who looked like he was in like a proto White Tiger uniform, like a handmade, kind of like
Hmm.
Matt's black suit type of thing.
Mhm,
And people are saying that's White Tiger and it looks like a man. So we think it's Hector Ayala.
mhm, mhm.
Um, but I don't think we got anything beyond that one blurry him walking into a bodega, I think. So this looks very much like Matt's representing him because
Yeah,
Yeah.
in
he's speaking
jail.
to them after he's been arrested.
Yeah, which is a major storyline from the comics.
I will say that I think I was also quite surprised that it felt like they fit in there's a
Mhm.
lot of things happening in this trailer, a lot of characters, a lot of implied storylines. So I'm fascinated to see how that's going to play out over like those first 9 episodes. Obviously, we know that they're going to be filming a quote unquote season 2, probably that other 9 that was promised in 2022 of that 18 episode order. Just very fascinating. Obviously, I am holding out hope that they're going to do justice to a lot of this, but it just, I'm just wondering how are they going to break up these arcs? Are they going to have these be kind of carried out through those 18 episodes? Just a lot of questions to me, like how they're going to do it and execute it. But if they wanted me to get excited and get hyped by that trailer, they did the job.
And
It did what it needed to do.
I wonder how long those episodes are running time. So
Since you are our resident Miss Marvel Stan, how
oh
on a
yeah.
scale from 1 to 10, how shocked were you
Well,
when you
like yeah,
saw
12. I was very shocked. Like I didn't see that coming. I didn't expect Kamala's dad to
what a
show up.
fascinating character to cross over.
Yes, and the dad. Um,
Yeah.
so I'm very interested, like because like they are technically neighbors,
Yeah,
so
he's in Jersey.
it makes sense, yeah, that Miss
He's been in
Marvel might,
space. Hasn't he
yeah,
been in
she probably,
space?
as we know from the comics, like she's a big fan of Daredevil, so
Mm, mhm,
she
mhm.
she would be very excited to actually meet Matt if she ever saw him in uniform.
Yeah.
So would be that would be a very cool crossover, even if we get like 5 minutes of it.
All of the rumors we heard about characters showing up, that we heard Jessica Jones is going to be in it. We heard all of these rumors. Nobody said Yusuf Khan. And I think I even wrote, okay, who had that on their bingo card? Because I didn't. Like that was such a surprise. And for a while I was like, okay, maybe it's just a guy who really looks like him. Maybe it's not really him. And then it was like, no, it's him. That's absolutely him.
I mean, a lot of us were asking that, like, were we mistaken? Did we really see who we thought we saw? But then several people on Reddit and the wider internet also had the same question. No, that was him.
I'm sure there are still some surprises that Marvel's keeping close to the vest. So who knows? Who knows what interesting little cameos we might get.
I mean, the fact that he asks Matt, "What kind of a lawyer are you?" Is that in a like a court setting or something? What is the situation? Like, how do you know that he's a lawyer? Like, is he representing him or someone else he
Right.
knows? Yeah.
I can't remember from Ms. Marvel if we found out what he does for a living. There looked like maybe there is a bank robbery happening. And I'm wondering if maybe he works in that bank and Matt's there for some reason, that that could be the tie-in. It could be that he needed legal advice because something happened.
According to Marvel.com, he is a banker.
He's a banker. See, I did not know that. Okay. So that could be the connection right there. That's an easy commute from Jersey City to Manhattan. I know people who do
Yeah.
that.
So that New York Mutual is the thing. Okay. That's the bank he probably works at. Who
There we go. We're solving these mysteries in real time. Any other reactions? Any other lingering thoughts or questions?
Bullseye in handcuffs.
Yeah. It's I think that will be a very interesting character to follow as we sort of piece together what the continuity is going to be from our original show. Because obviously they left him in a very interesting spot at the end of season 3 of Daredevil. He seems to be fully intact and walking through a jail, through a prison when we see him again. And, obviously the hope is he's going to fully level up into the Bullseye that we know and love. um,
And maybe this time he's obviously he should be against Fisk too. So maybe Fisk is facing a threat
mm,
from him as well.
yeah.
And speaking of Fisk,
Hmm.
uh, like that is a big connection from season 3 because when he's talking to Matt, he goes, "Who am I getting this warning from? Is it Matt Murdock or is
Yeah,
it Robert Half?"
when I was talking to my husband, he was like, "Does I can't remember, does Fisk know Matt's identity?" And I'm like, "Yeah, remember he's punching him and he's showing
He
his
pulls off his
face."
mask.
uh, but it does that will be an interesting dynamic to see play out in this post Fisk knows Matt's identity situation. I'm sure we'll talk about this hopefully in another episode, but I'd be interested to kind of dig into a little bit of, obviously, we've seen Matt and Fisk in different places around the MCU now. Wondering how much or how little those appearances will affect the characters that we see in Daredevil Born Again. There's a lot of interesting things to kind of posit about and mull
Yeah.
over.
So speaking of the mask, we did see multiple helmets, which I'm going to be honest, when I saw that, I was not sure how I felt about that because, first of all, it doesn't look like his old apartment where they are. And then, can you please give me a reason why he would need multiple colored helmets? Because he's not going for aesthetics because he can't see it. So I'm hoping that there's an explanation there. It's so fast. The shots of him actually in his suit are so fast. It's hard to see. I know this is important to some people. It is not important to me, but I did not see a DD on his chest. But I know some people are like ride and die about that. It was really fast.
Yeah, I think we can safely say that they're not revealing the latest suit in the teaser. They're probably wanting to save that for the show
I
because
mean, the fact that there are 5 helmets, there might
yeah.
be different iterations of
But
the suit.
yeah, I mean, yeah, it's one of those silly things where it's kind of like, okay, this guy doesn't need 5 suits. Well, actually, he probably could use 5 suits just so that he has some backups and stuff when he gets, suit 1 and 2 torn up. To me, that was
Yeah,
really felt like truly just an Easter egg for folks that are familiar with
yeah,
his
yeah.
different colored suits from the comics. But it was so like the question, like, what layer is he going into that he has all these things on display, right? You know what? Random, but I'd love to see where he's living now. Would love to see. I loved that apartment from the original Daredevil show.
Yeah, yeah,
That big industrial loft situation. We'll see how far Matt's come in the
yeah.
years since
Yeah,
we've seen him. So
Maybe he
we don't
makes more
know.
money now and he can afford, like, more expensive, nicer place, even though that place was pretty good.
He could have moved in with Shower Girl, who we've heard. We haven't got any, like, nothing official, but the rumors floating around is that she's Heather Glenn.
mhm.
Yeah,
But we don't, that nothing official has come out, but it could be he moved in. We don't know. And that brings up a whole bunch of questions. Ooh, does she know? Does she know who he is? So there's a lot of questions that got raised by this. Yeah, I love that apartment. And so it'll kind of break my heart a little bit if we don't get it back.
like we could literally have a different discussion pod for each little nugget we got.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And again, we are hoping to dig into some of those new to folks of the show type of characters like White Tiger, like Muse. Do a little bit of a mini deep dive on some of those folks. Anyway, just things that we're hoping to do. We are really hoping to get back on the horse, so to speak, and just get some stuff out there as we patiently wait for Daredevil Born Again to premiere in March. So keep an ear out for more of that content. I guess before we wrap up, we could just talk a little bit about some of the press that's come out during D23.
Oh yeah.
First of all, I just have to say, it is so nice to, one, have the cast back together again, two, have them doing photo shoots and interviews. And, because the last time we got this was when Daredevil season 3 premiered.
2018. Yeah.
2018. We were there. We were there, Aisha.
Yes.
We were there. We
Yeah,
were
you
there
go Comic Con.
together. We were there at the Build event. We were at New York Comic Con to see their panel. And I'm just so thrilled to like have them be back on like the press circuit talking about
Yes.
the show. And it was so nice too to see in the few interviews that did come out, like, oh yeah, this is a cast that likes each other. They've clearly, you can tell that they've like worked together for a while and that they're just like thrilled to be back together again. Of course, I just also want to note that between D23 and now, we got that amazing IMDb interview that if you haven't seen, we have it linked on our social media channels, but we also did a little cut of all the Save Daredevil shout outs that we received. It's nothing that we ever expect, but it's always thrilling when it happens. And I think what made this one in particular extra special was, again, it was happening at D23 on an
Yes.
official press event for the show. And that to hear not only Charlie, who has always been extremely generous and kind toward us in public, but Deborah Ann Wool and Vincent both said such lovely, lovely things. So, how did you guys feel when you saw that?
Immensely grateful.
Yeah.
Very emotional. I got very emotional. And like you said, Charlie, every time he says it, I heard he just opened another convention appearance by giving us a shout out, and I'm frantically looking for a video and I can't find one. But he says it so much that, it's not a surprise, although it's so beautiful every time he says it. Deborah saying it was huge. And then Vincent specifically talking about the billboard, like the
I
fact
love
that,
that they pulled the footage.
yes, the fact that he knew about it. He was like, did you know they put up a billboard? That was
Yeah.
really cool to have him specifically talk about that.
That was 2019, what? January?
February?
February
Yeah.
2019.
Was it while
Yeah.
This is after
it
Ace Comic Con.
it was after Ace. I think it
Yes.
might have been when folks went to New York in February.
And we got new members of the Save Daredevil team during that event.
We did. We did. We met some key folks during that little meetup. Yeah. That was more than 5 years ago, which is crazy.
Wow.
So it was just, it was quite a little bit of like an out of body experience just to be like, whoa, okay, not only Charlie, but Deb. Huge
Yes.
thanks to Deb for acknowledging that. And yeah, just the whole thing together it was just so nice. So nice.
It's good to know that they know and acknowledge the fans
Hmm.
and appreciate the support they got from everyone, not just the team, but the wider fandom, which, they were on board this
In fact,
campaign. Yes.
I know I have never heard Feige use the word save Daredevil ever, but didn't he say something about how the fans wanted this?
Yeah.
He was like, from the very beginning of doing television for Marvel Studios, there's one show that everybody was asking us for. And I was like, when you say everybody, do you mean
You
Save
mean us.
Daredevil, the fan over here? If so, then yes, that was us. It was just funny because there were lots of these comments like, oh, the fans. And my husband was joking, like, just say Save Daredevil. Just say it.
It's funny that at my work, when I talk about my nerdiness, which to my clients, which I do, because they see the evidence on my desk with my Star Trek cup and my Daredevil Lego, and I tell them about Daredevil, and a lot of them have watched the show. But now, like, my pitch has changed from like, we are working to save this show. Now, like, we've already saved this show now.
Show's coming out in
So,
March
show's coming out next
on Disney
year.
Plus.
So,
March 2025 on Disney Plus.
yeah.
Daredevil Borny. We'll help Kevin. Let us
Yeah,
know.
Yes.
it was premiere. We have dresses picked out. If anyone would like to invite us to the premiere, I'm just saying. We clean up really nice. We're all very stunning looking. It would be really good.
We're ready to promote. We're ready to
Oh, yeah.
promote. Just
100%.
give us a heads up. Give
Yep.
us the word. We're here.
We'll be there.
We're here. Yeah.
It's funny. I met Phyllis 5 years ago this month, and I posted a photo of it in our Discord, and someone else said, go back in time and tell those ladies we just got a trailer. It's kind of hard to believe, but we just got a trailer.
That's crazy.
You know what I'm curious about? Do we know if that is the same teaser that was shown at that industry event or if it's something else?
That's a great question. I'm guessing the industry event in question is like the upfronts.
Probably longer than that. I don't know. We don't even know.
Yeah, I bet they probably cut together something more of like maybe vibes.
When was that event?
Oh gosh, that was 6 months ago?
Oh,
It should have been February if it was
Yeah.
I really doubt we had enough footage
yeah.
for
Does
this
anyone
long
remember
period at that time
when they finished shooting officially?
because they didn't start until January, restart until January.
That's a great
That's a good
point.
point. That's a good point.
Yeah.
So they probably didn't even have a lot of that footage.
Yeah,
And I'll actually be curious if they're gonna cut a different version for when they decide to release the official
they might. They
trailer.
might. So, like, have we talked about the? We haven't had a podcast discussion about changes.
We haven't, you're right. The before and the after of the pause and the restart and
If like we because we've been in a wait and see situation as well, right? As all this news was coming out last year,
yeah, and I know that he talked about it, right? Charlie talked about it, very recently at Fan Expo Chicago.
just yesterday.
Okay, so I'm just gonna read this out loud, and then we can maybe discuss a little bit. So when specifically asked about what Charlie thought about what was originally shot before all the changes took place with the new creative direction, he stated the following: I'm actually not going to answer that just because it's more complicated. I've read online how that information has been received, and the truth of the matter is, it was a lot more complicated than that. A lot of the material that we shot pre strike is brilliant and is still in the show and works really well. There were just some complicated factors around what we had been tasked to do, and what we were discovering was and wasn't working. I would hate to answer that and then make it sound like what people were doing before the changes were made was not good or wrong. It was just more complicated than that. I think what I'll say is credit to Marvel that they looked at the episodes and could acknowledge that we could still do better and that we maybe needed to go in a slightly different direction. That's just how it is. We are so lucky to be working for a company that is willing to do that and spend more money to get there. But where we ended up felt really good.
Like, correct me if I'm wrong, but before the strike, the general news that we were getting, like articles and stuff, that it's not a direct continuation. It's a similar tone, but same continuity, but maybe not. But after the changes were made, they like Marvel, like even on Disney Plus, they put them in the same MCU timeline, and they
Hmm.
said, no, you know what, those shows are in the same timeline, and basically it's a continuation of season three, just several years later.
Hmm.
So I think that was Save Daredevil team member mind. I feel like okay, that's what they mean by the direction of the show. Maybe they wanted it more aligned with the original tone of the show.
Yeah, from what we've seen and read, I want to say that they tried something a little different. They tried to do something that maybe could stand on its own, separate from what had come before.
Right.
And obviously, it was great that they were always willing to like go with Charlie, go with Vincent, keep very, very key actors as those same characters. And obviously, they'd already invested that time with both Charlie and Vincent and putting them in different like MCU projects. But, I think at the end of the day, though, this was always the only project in the MCU TV side of things that had something that came before. And so it's not surprising to me that whatever they created with this original vision of the show just wasn't going to feel completely right, given that they have the context of the original show to be
Yeah.
like looking at they can look at this new footage with that lens. And I can't remember off the top of my head, but I do remember reading something about how the first iteration of Daredevil Born Again was going to be like heavily skewed on the side of legal drama, which we've talked about this. I think is certainly always very interesting to explore Matt's like lawyer side, but
And there have been comic book runs which do focus on the legal side more, which is fine. It's all part of Matt's life. But the original show had a certain tone, and they came to the realization that for Born Again, they wanted the tone to kind of match the original version.
I think they really realized that fans were not going to be happy if it wasn't more of a continuation. After these changes, that's when we saw the Nelson Murdoch and Paige sign go up. That's when we saw Eldon and Deborah on set. And even at D23, Marvel Studios tweeted out when they were walking out on stage, the founding members of Nelson and Murdoch and Paige approached the stand. That is an absolute call out to the ending of season 3. And they're acknowledging it and saying, yep, that's a thing. So I have a feeling that weighed very heavily into their decision is if we give the fans something that's completely different, are they going to be cool with it? And probably not.
And
So
I think it's worth noting that the Marvel Studios television experiment has been a bit of a mixed bag. Um, the reception has been a little bit all over the place, and that's not for any one reason. There's a lot of, as Charlie says, complicated factors. But if you want to guarantee that you're going to have a hit with your next Marvel television show, especially if one of those shows is Daredevil, not to say that you got to do the obvious and not try to do something a little bit different, a little bit new, but there are some things that were working, and if it ain't broke, don't fix it. So I'm
Absolutely.
really glad they were able to come to that realization. And again, as Charlie said, obviously there's going to still be a lot of stuff that was shot from pre-strike from the original version of the show that's going to be in the show. They
And
did do reshoots. They're going to add stuff to that original footage. They're going to be able to edit it into something more in line with the new vision. It's not like it was a waste.
I for one want Matt to keep all those cool new suits and
Yeah.
clothes that
It
God,
looked
he
great.
looks good in those
Yeah.
clothes.
It looks like a man that's has a bit more time and money.
Yes, keep the wardrobe, please.
I definitely want to see Matt as the lawyer. I think if they went in the opposite direction and there was no Matt as the lawyer, that would really make me angry
Yeah,
because one of the things I love about this character from the comics on up is that Matt Murdock is not a cover. He is that person. He is that lawyer just as much as he's the guy who puts on the suit and beats the crap out of bad guys. And the show definitely weighed into him trying to find that balance and often failing, which makes for great drama. So yeah, definitely give us lawyer Matt. Definitely don't take that away from us. But it's got to be that balance.
yeah. Every time he drops one of his personas, his life falls apart. So he has to find a balance.
So yeah, we're gonna find out. We're gonna find out in March if they manage to crack it, if they manage to crack the balance.
I just want to say people have been reaching out on social media thanking us. And I want to say this again because I say this every time. Look in the mirror and say thank you to yourself because it's not like we did this by ourselves. We could not have done this by ourselves. Every single person who wrote a letter, who did a social media post, who signed the petition, who showed up wearing our shirt, who, screamed into the void, we need this show back. Every single person made this happen.
We're a small team of us could not have run this campaign if we didn't have the support of the wider fandom. And the fandom of Fear has been awesome.
Yeah, this has been such a gratifying journey. So yeah, our goal is to record a little bit more content, dig into as we mentioned, dig into maybe some of the new faces that have popped up in that trailer. We also might rewatch some episodes of previous seasons. I know that's probably something a lot of you are going to do. And we certainly will be on that train as well. So yeah, if you have any thoughts, any ideas or things that you'd like us to chat about, feel free to reach out to us on social media.
Thanks and bye.
Bye, everybody. Thank you for listening to Talk Daredevil. For more information about Saved Daredevil, including links to our socials, please visit us at savedaredevil.com. Remember, Murdochs always get back